Hava Nashira, Hava Nashira. Let us sing. Try that with me. Hava Nashira, Hava Nashira, Hava Nashira. Let us sing. Come, let us sing. Come, let us sing. Come, let us sing. Hava Nashira. Come, let us sing. Come, let us sing. Come, let us sing. Hava Nashira. Hava Nashira. Hava Nashira. Hava Nashira. Let us sing. Let's do it again. Hava Nashira. Hava Nashira. Hava Nashira. Let us sing. Come, let us sing. Come, let us sing. Come, let us sing. Hava Nashira. Come, let us sing. Come, let us sing. Come, let us sing. Hava Nashira. Hava Nashira. Hava Nashira. Hava Nashira. Let us sing. Hava Nashira. Hava Nashira. Hava Nashira. Let us sing.
Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat Shalom.
Welcome to all of you that are still making your way in. Find a spot that feels good to you. We're so happy to see everyone. I am Rabbi Emily Hyatt. This is Cantor Liz Sachs, and we are thrilled to be celebrating Shabbat with you this evening. A few extra highs and hellos to Sam Rosen and his family, who is becoming bar mitzvah tomorrow morning. We're thrilled to have you and your whole gang with us. Nice to see everyone. And a very special hello to all of our ITJ students and families and friends that are here. ITJ is our Community Intro to Judaism program, and we have very many of our students with us in person tonight. Can you imagine what it must be like to be learning all about Judaism on the internet only and not being so much in person? And so this is our first sort of formal in-person gathering with that crew, and we are so happy to see you. We might do just a little bit extra context giving during this service since we have so many first-timers with us, which is always, I think, useful for everyone. So we'll all learn a little bit together today. Quick housekeeping things. As you know, our mask policy is a little bit different today than it was last week. We're excited to be moving cautiously, carefully, and respectfully in a forward, hopefully, direction. So for those of you that want to keep your masks on, please feel free. We are here for you and want to keep you safe, and hope that you will do what you need to feel comfortable. Reminder that bathrooms are straight out and to the right down the hallway out there. So we will ask you to use those if you need them. Feel free. Finally, if you would make sure that your cell phones are off and that they don't participate in our service while you are participating in our service, we would be so grateful. I think that was everything.
Great housekeeping.
Thank you. And with that, we're gonna kick off our Shabbat service this evening by bringing light into this world. It's just a little bit lighter than it has been for the last couple of weeks. I love watching how it changes as we make our way closer and closer to spring. -7 doesn't help. Breaking records. Anyway, I'm gonna invite up Sam and his mom and dad to come and help us to light candles. So Sam and Rebecca and Brian, come on up.
אתה Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher kitshanu bemitzvotav vetzivanu leadlik ner shel
Thank you. Mazel tov. We'll see you all again shortly as you help us with our service this evening, and mazel tov to your whole family. What we didn't yet do as we begin our service is to turn around and look at that camera, wave hello, and say Shabbat Shalom to
Shabbat
all of the people who are joining us from afar. Shabbat Shalom. We're so grateful for the technology that allows us to be together. And so wherever you are this evening, here with us physically, here with us spiritually, maybe you're wearing your jammy pants, I'm jealous. We're gonna turn our spaces into holy spaces. And so we read responsively. May the door of this synagogue be wide enough to receive all who hunger for love, all who are lonely for friendship.
Together, may it welcome all who have cares to unburden, thanks to express, and hopes to nurture.
May the door of this synagogue be narrow enough to shut out pettiness and pride, envy and enmity.
Together, may its threshold be no stumbling block to young or straying feet.
May it be too high to admit complacency, selfishness, and harshness.
May this synagogue, for all who enter, the doorway to a richer and more meaningful life. We are going to welcome Shabbat with words of song, Lechu Neranana Ladonai. Let us all sing together. Lechu Neranana, Yai Lai 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 Lai, Ladonai, Yai Lai 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 Lai, Nariah, Yai Lai 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 Lai, Litzor Yishaynu, Yai Lai 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 Lai. Let us sing out to God, the maker of all, sure and strong. Let all of creation, from mountain to sea, hear our song. Lechu Neranena, Yai Lai 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 Lai, Ladonai, Yai Lai Lai Lai
words that we just sang, they come from the Psalms, which is a part of our tradition and text that often talks about how we feel in moments. And so we sing these songs of joy, these words of joy, because Shabbat is this gift that we are giving. And in our tradition, we sort of have this feeling that as Shabbat descends, as evening descends on Friday night, we are waiting. We have this anticipation, this excitement, this need for the change that comes with Shabbat. And so we imagine that we are standing with open arms, waiting for Shabbat to descend, to welcome this gift in. And so as we sing the words of Lecha Dodi, that's the image that here we are, Shabbat is coming, and we cannot wait to greet this day.
Lecha Dodi, Likrat Kala, Penny Shabbat, Yakabela. Lecha Dodi, Likrat Kala, Penny Shabbat, Yakabela.
Shamor v'zachor b'dibur achad, Hishmiyanu el hamyuchad, Adonai echad u'shmo echad, L'shem u'tiferet v'lid chila.
Lecha Dodi, Likrat Kala, Penny Shabbat, Nekabela. Lecha Dodi, Likrat Kala, Penny Shabbat, Nekabela. Likrat Shabbat, Lechu v'nelcha, Ki makor habracha, Merosh mikedem nesucha, Sof ha'aseh ha'machshava tchila. Lecha Dodi, Likrat Kala, Penny Shabbat, Nekabela. Lecha Dodi, Likrat Kala, Penny Shabbat, Nekabela.
Hitorari, hitorari, kiva orech, kumi ori, uri, uri, shir daberi, kevod Adonai, alayich nidla.
Lecha Dodi, Likrat Kala, Penny Shabbat, Nekabela. Lecha Dodi, Likrat Kala, Penny Shabbat, Nekabela. We rise as we are able, as we greet the Shabbat of tonight. Bo'I v'shalom, Ateret bala, Gam besimcha uvtzola, Toch emunei am segula. Bo'I chalom, Bo'I chalom. We turn back around. Lecha Dodi, Likrat
You might have noticed that we turned around to actually greet Shabbat when Shabbat arrived through the door. So now Shabbat is here. And with that, we remain standing for the Baruch Hu, which is our call to prayer. We read responsively, "This is balance. The world is entirely consumed by darkness, then brimming with light."
Together, the seasons approach one after the other, bring unbearable heat, bitter cold, and everything in between. Joy fades. Loss makes space for growth and new life.
Balance is not a perfect blend of extremes. It is something that takes place inside a larger system. It is a perspective and awareness that makes space for us to fully experience winter and then spring, light and then darkness, darkness and then light.
Together, life of all worlds, thank you for giving us the strength to allow our world, our heart, to be big enough for it all.
Baruch atah Adonai hama'ariv aravim. Blessed are you, Adonai, who brings on evening.
Ahavat olam beit Yisrael amcha ahavta. We are love, 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 by unending love and unending love. One more time. Ahavat olam beit Yisrael amcha ahavta. We are love, 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 by unending love and unending love.
Love abundant, love unstinting. Our God, you have enfolded us in love. Tender compassion beyond all bounds, your precious gift. Our fathers and mothers gave you their trust, and you gave them Torah, laws by which to live. For their sake, teach us as well. Grace us with your guidance. Together.
Loving Father, merciful Mother of us all, grant us clear understanding that we may listen, learn, and teach. preserve, practice, and fulfill with love every lesson of your Torah. May learning your Torah light up our eyes. May our hearts embrace your mitzvot. Unite us in love and reverence for you, that we may never feel ashamed of our deeds.
Baruch atah Adonai, habocher ba'amo Yisrael be'ahava. Our praise to you, Adonai. You have singled out your people Israel with love.
Ahavat olam, Beit Yisrael, Amcha ahavta. We are loved, loved, loved by unending love and unending love. Ahavat olam, Beit Yisrael, Amcha ahavta. We are loved, loved, loved by unending love and unending love. Open up our arms, teach us how to live. Fill our hearts with joy and all the love you have to give. Gather us in peace as you lead us to your name, and we will know that you are one. And we will know that you are one. seated, we chant Ve'ahavta together, our prayer that expresses our love for God. Ve'ahavta et Adonai Elohecha b'chol levavcha uv'chol nafshecha uv'chol meodecha ve'hayu advarim ha'ele asher anochi mitzavcha hayom al levavecha ve'shinantam levanecha ve'dibarta bam B'shivtecha b'veitecha u'v'lechtecha v'aderech u'v'shochbecha u'v'kumecha u'kshartam leot al yadecha ve'hayu letotafot bein einecha u'chtavtam al mezuzot beitecha u'visharecha leman tizkeru Va'asitem et kol mitzvotai, vitem kedoshim lelohechem. Ani Adonai Elohechem, asher hotzeiti etchem me'eretz Mitzrayim, liot lachem lelohim. Ani Adonai Elohechem emet.
We reach this point in our service, and we always take a moment to be grateful for our freedom. The holiday of Passover is not far, and yet it is not just at that time of year that we acknowledge that we were slaves and we made it out of slavery in Egypt so long ago. We acknowledge that every day, all the time. And so we prepare to spend a moment in gratitude for freedom. Coming through the sea was only the beginning, the giddiness of walking through walls of living water. But the story doesn't end there. Now it's desert without a map. What if the next 40 years are bone dry and desolate? Maybe it wasn't so bad, that life, numb and familiar. Cucumbers and fish fresh from the Nile, certainty, a fixed path. Now, hope unfolds its mighty wings, and every step risks failure. When I falter, remind me I didn't cross the sea alone. Remind me there's a mountain I'm heading toward, a promise that spans lifetimes of becoming together with you.
Nora tehilot, Nora tehilot, oh say fele, let's do it again. Mi chamocha ba'elim Adonai, mi chamocha nedar b'kodesh, Nora tehilot, Nora tehilot, oh say fele.
Between you and me, and freedom, but we shall overcome one day. Mi chamocha ba'elim Adonai, mi chamocha Nedar b'kodesh, Nora tehilot, Nora tehilot, oh sefele. And the river is fear, and the river is hate, and the river is standing between us and the gates of freedom. And we shall overcome.
HaKodesh, Norah Tehilot, Norah Tehilot, Osephelet. And the river divides, and the river forgives, and the river's a wall, and the river's a bridge to freedom, freedom, and we shall overcome one day. Yes, we shall overcome one day.
Thus it is said, Adonai redeemed Jacob from a hand stronger than his own. Praised are you, Adonai, for redeeming Israel. Baruch atah Adonai Ga'al Yisrael. At night, we add an extra prayer, a prayer that we say because the dark can be hard. It can be dark. You can't always see, and so we ask for extra safety and peace and shelter. May we lie down this night in peace and rise up to life renewed. May this night spread over us a canopy of calm, lifted by the blessing of rest. There will come a time when the morning will bring no word of war, famine, or anguish. There will come a dawn to rejoice in the peace of mind and heart and being. Praised are you, the source of renewal within us for the night's rest and for the promise of peace.
Let there be love and understanding among us. Let peace and friendship be our shelter from life's storm. Let there be love and understanding among us. Let peace and friendship be our shelter from life's storms. Hashkivenu, Adonai Eloheinu. Hashkivenu, Leshalom. Hashkivenu, Hashkivenu, Adonai Eloheinu, Leshalom, Leshalom. B'ha'amidenu, Shomreinu L'chaim, Ufros Aleinu, Sukkot Shlomecha. Hashkivenu, Adonai Eloheinu. Hashkivenu, Leshalom. Hashkivenu, Hashkivenu, Adonai Eloheinu. Leshalom, Leshalom. Let there be love and understanding among us. Let peace and friendship be our shelter from life's storms. Let there be love and understanding among us. Let peace
We often see the prayer that we are going to do next as the spiritual pinnacle of our service, that when we get to this moment, we are ready to really talk to God, whether that is outside of us or just in our hearts. And so as we prepare ourselves for this moment, imagining that this entire service has been a lead up to the following conversation, we begin with these words. We cannot merely pray for God to end war. For the world was made in such a way that we must find our own path of peace within ourselves and with our neighbor.
We cannot merely pray to God to root out prejudice, for we already have eyes with which to see the good in all people, if we would only use them rightly.
We cannot merely pray to God to end starvation, for we already have the resources with which to feed the entire world, if we would only use them wisely.
We cannot merely pray to God to end despair, for we already have the power to clear away slums and give hope, if we would only use our power justly.
We cannot merely pray to God to end disease, for we already have great minds with which to search out cures and healings, if we would only use them constructively.
Therefore, we pray instead for strength, determination, and willpower, to do instead of merely pray, to become instead of merely to wish, that our world may be safe and that our lives may be blessed.
We invite you to rise as you are able for our tefillah.
Adonai sfatai tiftach, Adonai sfatai tiftach, ufi yagir tehilatecha, ufi yagir tehilatecha. Adonai sfatai tiftach, Adonai sfatai tiftach, ufi yagir tehilatecha, ufi yagir tehilatecha. Adonai sfatai tiftach, Adonai sfatai tiftach. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu v'Elohei Avoteinu v'Imotenu, Elohei Avraham, Elohei Yitzchak, v'Elohei Yaakov, Elohei Sarah, Elohei Rivka, Elohei Rachel, v'Elohei Leah, Ha'el HaGadol HaGibor v'Hanora, El Elyon, Gomel Chasadim Tovim, וקונאי הכל, וזוכר חסדי אבות ואימהות, ומביא גאולה לבני בניהם, למען שמו באהבה, מלך עוזר ומושיע ומגן. ברוך אתה אדוני, מגן אברהם ועזרת שרה. אתה גיבור לעולם אדוני, מחיי הכל אתה רב להושיע, משיב הרוח ומוריד הגשם, מכלכל חיים בחסד, בחיי הכל ברחמים רבים, סומך נופלים ורופא חולים, ומתיר אסירים, ומקיים אמונתו לשני עפר. מי כמוך בעל גבורות ומידו מלך, מלך מבין ומחיה ומצמיח ישועה, ונאמן אתה לחיות הכל. ברוך אתה אדוני מחיי הכל. אתה קדוש ושמך קדוש, וקדושים בכל יום יהללוך סלה. ברוך אתה אדוני האל הקדוש.
We take a moment now for silent prayer. Whatever words you have not yet said, they can be in your heart or in your mind, and we invite you to stand or sit, whatever feels comfortable. We'll come back together in a moment.
Just a few weeks, we will celebrate our holiday of Pesach, of Passover, our season of freedom. And as we lift our eyes and look around the world and see scenes of violence and sadness and destruction and exile, we remember that in our ancient past, we too have experienced violence and destruction and sadness and exile. And in our Haggadah, in our text on Pesach night, it tells us, B'chol dor vador chayav adam lirot et etzmo ke'ilu hu yatsa mimitzrayim. In every generation, each one of us must look upon ourselves as if we personally were liberated from Egypt, as if we personally experienced what it meant to leave our home and wander until we found a safety that we were not sure we were going to receive. And so in that spirit, we offer this text, these words, as we hope and pray for a better tomorrow, and know that it is our job to help it be so. B'chol dor vador chayav adam lirot et atzmo ke'ilu yatsa mimitzrayim. B'chol dor vador עצמו כאילו יצא ממצרים. Can you picture yourself crossing through and wandering the desert? Can you feel the wind support you as you go? Do you hear the cries of those left behind, still hoping for tomorrow? Do you fear the mountain you still have to climb? בכל דור ודור חייב אדם לראות את עצמו כאילו יצא ממצרים. בכל דור ודור חייב אדם לראות את עצמו כאילו יצא ממצרים. אילו הוציאנו ממצרים, אילו הוציאנו ממצרים, דיינו, 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 דיינו. בכל דור ודור חייב אדם לראות את עצמו כאילו יצא ממצרים. בכל דור ודור חייב אדם לראות את עצמו כאילו יצא ממצרים. יצא ממצרים. יצא ממצרים.
And with that beautiful song and those words in our mind, we turn now to our Torah service. And as we take the Torah out of the ark, I invite you to rise as you are able.
Hallelujah, 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 hallelujah,
As is our tradition, before we read from the Torah, we have to talk a little bit about what is inside it and what our Torah portion, our weekly section of the Torah is talking about. So we are in Parashat Vayikra, or the Torah portion called Vayikra. It is the first of the Torah portions in the third book of the Torah, which is also called Vayikra, but you might also know it as the book of Leviticus. And sometimes that catches me off guard and I do it in the microphone, and that's so fun for all of you. So that was a total win. So here's what happens in the Torah portion this week is we start this new book, and God calls to Moses from this newly built sanctuary situation that there was a lot of details about. We've been talking about it for a couple of weeks, that there's a traveling sanctuary that the Israelites have while they're in the desert, and now it's done. They're finished. There were a lot of details that went into the building of it, and now they're done. And so God calls to Moses and is like, okay, now we're going to use it. And so God starts to tell Moses the laws of what is going to happen in order to pray to God in this sanctuary. And the thing is, prayer, the way that we're doing it, this whole situation of like you sit in the sanctuary and we read words, is new-ish in the sense that it's about 2,000 years old. And before that, we sacrificed animals. So this would have been a Shabbat barbecue if we were back in the time of the temple, rather than this less meat-filled experience that we're having so far. Stay tuned. There might, whatever. But when we learn about worship in the Torah, what we're really talking about is sacrifice. And there's a whole bunch of different kinds of sacrifices that are brought, and they are sometimes animal sacrifices that are exactly what you think they are. And then sometimes they're not animals, they are other things. And so this portion specifically talks about 5 different kinds of offerings or sacrifices that happen. There is one that gets completely burned up, that nothing is left after it. It's given to God completely in the fire. There are a bunch of meal offerings or mincha offerings, which are prepared with flour and olive oil and spices and things like that. There's the shlamim, which is a peace offering. And that is truly a barbecue. When you bring that kind of offering, you then partake of it, meaning that you eat it. So it's a total win for everyone. You've brought an offering and you get dinner. There's also 2 other kinds of offerings that happen in this Torah portion. One is called a chatat, which is, we call it a sin offering, but that's a complicated name for it. And essentially, it is brought to atone for things that we have done wrong, transgressions that have happened, and we bring an offering in order to make up for those transgressions. It can be anybody, an ordinary person, the entire community, the high priest who's in charge of all of this, or even the king of Israel. And then there's a guilt offering. And the guilt offering is brought by one who's not really sure if they've made a mistake, one who perhaps found out that they unintentionally did something, or there's a couple of other more specific categories that fall into that. So this is, if you're hanging out with me all the time, this is one of those Torah portions that doesn't fall into the category of like big epic narrative. This is a detail Torah portion. But as always, the detailed Torah portions are kind of cool and have a lot to find if you're nerdy like me, so go on this journey with me. When we get to chapter 4 of Leviticus, there is a line that says, and we're talking about the guilt offering at this point. Actually, we're talking about the sin offering. I know, it's whatever. We're talking about the sin offering, and here's what it says. If the anointed priest who has incurred guilt, so that guilt falls upon the people, he shall offer for the sin of which he is guilty a bull of the herd without blemish as a sin offering to God. And it sounds like a fairly normal verse, that here's a reason why a person would bring an offering. But what it says is if the anointed priest who has incurred guilt made it so that guilt falls on the entire people, he has to bring this offering. What does it mean that because he has messed up, guilt is now on the entire people? What does that mean? And so, as usual, our sages have what to say about this, and they have a couple of different theories on what that means. Why would the high priest, he's the priest in charge of all of the other priests, he's the priestiest priest there is, and if he messes up and he has a transgression, it brings blame on all of the people. So what? Why? That seems insane. And so here's what a couple of our sages have to offer. One says, it's the mistake that he made is because he made an error in advising the people. He has interpreted law in such a way that they all messed up because he said, do it this way, and so they did it this way, and that was not the right way. And so the blame or the guilt that's on the people, okay, fine. So they all did what the guy said, and the guy was wrong, so now they're all wrong. Okay, kind of makes sense. There's a second option that is theologically different than that and complicated, that says that if a high priest committed a sin, it's because it is, here's what the commentary says. It says, this is proof that the people did not enjoy sufficient merits by reason of his activities that it should have protected him against committing a sin himself. This is, right, that is that if he was doing things well enough, the sin wouldn't have happened, the mistake wouldn't have happened because he would not have merited a mistake. That theology is not a free will theology. That's like if you do good things, then you get good things kind of thing. So I don't know how I feel about that one. But then there's another one by Rabbi Bahya, who lives in the 13th century in Spain, and says, maybe we're misinterpreting the language, and that actually what this means is that if guilt falls upon the people, that actually maybe upon is not the right word. What it really means is that it's like among the people. And what he's saying is that the Torah is trying to teach us that the high priest has to offer his offering if he messes up, and his mistake will be forgiven for him, just like God forgives the rest of the people, because even though the high priest is the priestiest priest, he's still just a dude, and he's still a normal person. He's not anything other than a human who makes mistakes and gets forgiven. And so if we were to translate this as, if this high priest, this anointed priest who has incurred guilt, so that guilt falls on him amongst the rest of the people, he's just like them in those moments. And I think that's really powerful. It's a really powerful way to think about all of these things that we are learning. The idea that these leaders, even the priesty priests, are just people, also fallible, people who make mistakes, people who are not always right. It's a nice idea. It's also, right, a concerning idea in some ways, because it means that the people who we put in charge of us today certainly can also mess up. And those mistakes maybe have big consequences. And so as much as it's beautiful in their humanity, it's also heavy in that truth, that there's a lot of power there. But I think there's another layer to this, which is even more powerful, which is that if we take that truth that Rabbeinu Bahya says, that what it means is that the high priest is among the people and is just like the people, if we take that, but then we don't retranslate to change it, and we read one more time, if it is the anointed priest, the high priest who has incurred guilt, so that guilt falls upon all of the people. Maybe that's talking about how we learn from watching our high priest go through this. That actually, if we watch somebody who we respect, somebody in a position of power, if we watch them mess it up, really do a good one, and then just like we would have to, they come back, they acknowledge it, they bring their sacrifice, they apologize, and they're forgiven by God. How does that change the way we treat ourselves when we make a mistake? Perhaps when we see the Kohen Gadol, the high priest, admitting mistakes, we learn how to admit our mistakes. And it sort of sets up this idea that maybe feeling guilt is a good thing. We think of it as not a good thing, right? Being guilty means that you've done something wrong, or that you are holding on to something and letting it weigh you down in a way that maybe isn't super helpful. But there's an anthropologist who lived about, I don't know, she probably 100 years ago was an anthropologist named Ruth Benedict. She died in the late 40s. And she says that there are two kinds of cultures. There are shame cultures and there are guilt cultures. And those are actually really different. Shame cultures are cultures where the idea that what matters the most is how other people see us is the idea that's lifted up. That we care a lot what other people think of us. And if we mess up, there's not really a good way to come back from it. Rabbi Lord Jonathan Sacks teaches us that shame cultures produce tragedies. When someone has been shamed, that's permanent, and that makes for tragedy. On the other hand, says Ruth Benedict, there are guilt cultures, and what matters when we mess up is how our voice within helps us respond to it. Do we have a conscience? Do we handle the guilt? How do we come back from it? Guilt cultures produce hope. Shame produces tragedy. Guilt produces hope. So guilt is good. Guilt is growth. Guilt is, oops, but I can do it better next time. And it shows up for us all the time. This truth, which is really present in our lives, shows up all of the time. It shows up in our political leaders and in our government and how we watch them go through their experiences when they mess up. What happens? How do they handle it? It shows up maybe occasionally, I don't know, in like our clergy. It shows, right? Other people who we see in positions of authority, what happens when they really mess up? It shows up for all of us, I'm sure, as professionals and supervisors and lay leaders and people who are an example to other people all the time. And most certainly, it shows up for us in our family systems. If we're parents, it shows up as parents. If we're children, we watch our parents. So I have to tell you this story. Neil my son, I have a 5-year-old. His name is Neil, and he just started taking karate. And it's incredible. He's only had one lesson, but he's like really got the like speed bag part down where he just wants to like really nail it, and he yells really loud. And so I feel like we've got the basics and the rest of it is gonna come. But part of what I really love about this studio that we signed him up at is that it's actually a lot less about the physical part than it is about the mental part. And they talk an enormous amount about attitude and perseverance and potential and discipline and focus and all these things, and like what kindergarten boy doesn't need those conversations. So we're really into it. And before he could join the class and get his white belt, he had to take 2 pre-classes individually with one of the instructors. So we went to the first one, and he was so into it. And so she gave us homework, and we had to practice our kicks, which the dog loved. We had to practice kicking things, and we had to practice this mantra. And the mantra's in this book, and it talks about how we're gonna use our body and our mind for good, and how we're gonna really work to build the world and all of these things about it. And we're in the car on the way to the second pre-class thing where she's gonna tell him if he made it into karate class. And and Neil's like, Mom, did we do all our homework? And I'm like, I don't know, did you kick Mabel enough times? Like, did you kick the pillow next to Mabel's the dog? Mabel was the dog, and the pillow kicking was like incessant. So we practiced that part, got it. But I forgot about the mantra. And it turns out Neil can't read, so that was really on me. That we were supposed to, he's learning, we were supposed to do that. And I said, oh, Neil, I'm so sorry. I totally forgot that we were supposed to practice the mantra. It was like a Monday to a Thursday. Not only did I forget, I took the little book out of my purse, and it was on my desk, and I didn't even have it so that we could read it once. And I said, I'm so sorry. I completely forgot. I hope you can still get your white belt and start class, but if not, I will tell her that it's my fault and we will try again. And he is like strapped into his car seat in the back, and he goes, Mom, it's okay, everybody makes mistakes. I love you. And I ripped my heart out. And I said, thank you, honey, so much for that. That makes me feel so much better. And he said, I'll help you tell Miss Sawyer. I said, okay, thank you. And so we walked in and we had all this whole conversation. But all I can think about, I think probably it was me who had said that at some point, that we all make mistakes and it's okay and we love each other and we give each other second chances and we help each other through it. Maybe he's learning that in school. I hope he learned it here. But he heard it. He heard it and he learned it. And then in a moment when I'm the parent, I'm the authority, and I made the mistake, and he said, it's okay that we all make mistakes and we're gonna get through it together. And so somehow it's sinking in. And so when we sing our words, B'chol dor vador chayav adam, lirot et atzmo ki'ilu hu yatsa mimitzrayim, in every generation we have to see ourselves as if we are the ones that came out of Egypt. What that's telling us is that every generation is both enslaved and free. Every generation is both right and wrong, makes mistakes and learns from them, because we're not afraid to feel a little bit guilty when we mess up and to admit it, and then hopefully to learn from it. And our tradition teaches us that we're never gonna be past it, which is awesome. We're never gonna be so good that we don't have to acknowledge it when we mess up. Every generation has to remember that we mess up, that we're not always perfect, that life is not always good, that it's not always easy. Every single generation. And so as we continue to figure out how to be humans and how to be people and how to do good things and how to help this hard world that we are in, I hope that we continue to be a culture, to be a community of guilt. That we know when we haven't done it right, and we know that that doesn't mean that it's the end. What we know is that next time we're gonna learn from it and we're gonna do it better and we're gonna model what that means. So may we as leaders, as grown-ups, as children, as bosses or parents, as examples for all those who are around us, may we have the strength and the courage to teach all of those who see us and who learn from us how to hold guilt, and from it, how to build a world of hope, because we know that we can try again, that we can do better, and that it's okay to make mistakes, Mom. We're gonna get through it together. I'll help you tell Miss Sawyer. Shabbat shalom. And so as we get ready to read from our Torah, this section, it is my honor to, in honor of the bar mitzvah of one Sam Rosen tomorrow, it is my honor to call back up his parents, Brian and Rebecca, to help us to bless the Torah. For those of you that have never experienced this deeply present Jewish ritual, this is where we look for our place in the Torah so that Cantor Sachs can chant from the Torah in the right place.
It's unfortunate when in this week's Parsha, every paragraph starts with Vayidaber Adonai el Moshe lemor.
Which means, and then God said to Moses, every paragraph. So hang tight. Well, we
the beginning and the end of the portion. So hold on.
This is an important moment.
guilt offering.
She's going to narrate it for us as she sees the important and exciting parts of this. Really, every paragraph starts the exact same way. And I'm pretty sure, Sam, you're reading from the beginning of the Parsha, yeah? Yeah. So when I picked the end part, so I made this really hard for you. How are you guys doing? You ready? Feeling nervous? Just killing time. It's fine. You want to Tanakh?
Maybe. There's just not that many options right now, so hold on. Aha. Sneaky. It was sneaky. You ready? Okay.
Oh, it's not even a thing. Okay, hold this. Scoot up. Ready? Go.
Baruch Adonai Hambarach.
Baruch Adonai Ambarach Le'olam Va'ed.
Baruch Adonai Hambarach Le'olam Va'ed. Baruch Atah Adonai Eloheinu melech ha'olam asher bahar banu mikol ha'amim v'natan lanu et Torato. Baruch Atah Adonai noten ha'torah.
Amen. Amen. Vaydaber Adonai el Moshe lemor. Daber el bnei Yisrael lemor. Nefesh ki tachata bishgaga mikol mitzvot Adonai asher lo te'asana ve'asa me'achat mehena. Im hakohen hamashiach cheta le'ashmar ha'am. Ve'ikriv al chatato asher chata par ben bakar tamim Adonai lechatat Ve'vi et hapar el petach ohel moed lifnei Adonai Ve'samach et yado al rosh hapar Ve'shachat et hapar lifnei Adonai ולקח הכהן המשיח מדם הפר, והביא אותו אל אוהל מועד.
The Eternal One spoke to Moses, saying, "Speak to the Israelite people thus. When a person unwittingly incurs guilt in regard to any of God's commandments about things not to be done, and does one of them, if it is the anointed priest who has incurred guilt, so the blame falls upon the people," sound familiar, "he shall offer for the sin of which he is guilty a bull of the herd without blemish as a purgation offering to the Eternal. He shall bring the bull to the entrance of the tent of meeting before the Eternal and lay a hand upon the head of the bull. The bull shall be slaughtered before the Eternal. And the anointed priest shall take some of the bull's blood and bring it into the tent of meeting." Yum. It doesn't say yum, I made that part up. Editorial.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech ha'olam asher natan lanu Torah emet v'chayei olam natav v'tohenu. Baruch atah Adonai noten ha'torah.
Amen.
Mazel
Thank you,
tov.
and Mazel Tov. You guys can have a seat, go either way. We take a moment while the Torah is still out to say a prayer for healing, which is an important part of our tradition. We just did this holy thing, learning together and hearing the Torah read. And so we use that positivity to say a prayer for those who are in need. In our congregation, our tradition is that there are 2 verses to this prayer. And in between the 2 of them, we will read a list of those that we know that are in need of healing. And then we will ask you for any others that you are thinking of on this Shabbat.
Pay the source of
Today we are praying for Zachary Hoffman, David Karner, Jean Silber, Scott Englander, Stacy Hoffman, Phyllis Schulman, James Tepper, Alan Davidson, Douglas Hamilton, Ira Levine, Leslie Rohde, Kara Smoley, Richard Seedroff, David Freed, Rick Gratch, Betty Heller, Alex Busnovetsky, Lori Goldman, Laura Culver, Carol Weiner, Jared Siegel, Arnold Brodsky, Yana Vishnitsky, Peggy Lehman, Rebecca Zuckerman, Gary Potashnik, Murray Unell, Donna Lenoble, Sheila Rosenberg, Murray Rosenberg, Nancy Sager, Miriam Brodsky, and Doris Lackner. If there are others for whom you are saying this prayer for healing, I invite you to say their names out loud as we pass around the room. It helps to say them. If you're at home, type them in on chat, hold them in your heart, say them out loud. We pray for each and every one of them. Baruch atah Adonai, Makor HaRefuah. Blessed are you, Adonai, the source of all healing. And with that, we rise as we are able, as we lift, dress, and return the Torah to the ark.
וזאת התורה אשר שם משה לפני בני ישראל. על פי אדוני ביד משה. אלי לי 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 אלי לי 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 יי לי 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 יי לי 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 יי לי 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 יי לי 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 יי לי
We remain standing for the Aleinu.
עלינו לשבח לאדון הכל, לתת גדולה ליוצר בראשית, שלא עשנו כגויי הארצות, ולא שמנו כמשפחות האדמה, שלא שם חלקנו כהם, וגורלנו ככל המונם, ואנחנו קוראים ומשתחווים ומודים לפני מלך מלכי המלכים הקדוש ברוך הוא.
You may be seated. We always conclude our services with a moment of memory, calling into this space those who are no longer with us. And so our thoughts turn to those who have departed this earth, our own loved ones, those whom our friends and neighbors have lost, the martyrs of our people whose graves are unmarked, and those of every race and nation whose lives have been a blessing to humanity. As we remember them, we meditate on the meaning of love and loss and life and death. And as our tradition teaches us, it helps to say the names of those that we have lost out loud. And so we are remembering those that we have lost in the last week, Gary Fish and Donald Gross. Those that we have lost in the last 30 days, Sam Dave Mattier, Joan Flaw Sussman, Irene Freund, Stephen Schwartz, Mina Kay, William Bill Osterberg, Nancy Schwader, and Florence Sloan. We're also thinking of all those for whom this Shabbat marks the Yortzeit, or the anniversary of the passing of a loved one. Anita M. Ansman, Bertha C. Baddock, Fred Bauer, Teresa Beers, Belle L. Beinhorn, Philip H. Burland, Hyman Berman, Miriam Alexander Bernstein, Heloise D. Bernstein, Sydney Blocker, Leopold Bryn, Ray Kaufman Brooks, Philip P. Brown, Beatrice Buchwald Levy, David Cohen, Sam Coleman, Donald E. Davis, Bessie S. Deegan, Stanley Dock, Harry A. Fetter, Dr. Morton Flax, Alan J. Friedman, Fanny Frumis, Joseph Gass, Jeanette K. Goldberg, Abraham A. Goldhammer, Harry A. Gordon, Max David Greenberg, Isidore Grimes, Morton P. Gross, Janice G. Gross, Helen Guerra, R. David Hirsch, Bennett Hornstein, Ada A. Idelson, Mina Isaacson, Shirley A. Jacobs, Amanda Kahn, Arline Katz, Sydney J. Keller, Tony Kern, Rose Klein, Marvin Kleinman, Ida Kurland, Rebecca Levin, Betty Lou Levine, Philip Lewis, Nanette Lipstein, Leo M. Marks, Eva May, Ruchiel Miller, Philip Miller, Martin S. Milstein, Sherman Minkoff, Belle Myron, Irvin Sonny Nedler, Louis Oakner, Bernice Patashnik, Louis Rice, Arthur A. Rinskopf, Fanny Rosenthal, Julius Rothstein, Louis Rubin, Edna Rudolph, Milton Schulman, Henry Schwartz, Bernice Sharp, Sydney Sherman, Sylvia Steller Siegel, Victor Siegel, Daisy Silverman, Marion Slavsky, Mark Sloan, Sam Slovin, Herman Snyder, Benjamin A. Spitzer, Bessie N. Stein, Rabbi Earl S. Stone, Irene Strackman, Eula Bunny Sugarman, Esther Sunshine, Abe Wenger, Jack J. Wax, Dr. Norman Weiner, and Saul Weiland. We add 10 more names from the city of Kolín in Czechoslovakia, where 10 of the 420 Jewish citizens where they were killed during World War II, for whom our Finer Chapel is dedicated. We recite 10 of their names each Shabbat. Berta Brunarova, Alois Budlovsky, Ivan Dekmar, Atalie Dekmarova, Anna Diamant, Yosef Diamant, Karel Diamant, Hugo Eckstein, Yuri Eckstein, and Julius Eckstein. And so it is with that I ask, if there are any others for whom you are saying Kaddish today, feel free to say them out loud. And if you're at home, type them, say them, hold them. And in our tradition, we honor not just those that we have lost, but those remembering them. And so if you have lost a loved one in the past 30 days, I invite you to rise as you are able. And if you have lost a loved one in the last year, I invite you to rise as you are able. And if this Shabbat marks the Yortzeit or the anniversary of the passing of your loved one, I invite you to rise as you can. And now we all rise to stand with you, to stand for those who have none, to stand for them, as we recite the words of the mourner's Kaddish. Yitgadal v'yitkarash shemei Rabbah, be'alma divra chirutei v'yamlich malchutei, b'chayechon uvyomechon uvchaye dechol beit Yisrael, ba'agala uvizman kariv v'imru amen. Yehi shmei Rabbah mevorach le'olam u'le'almei almaya. Yitbarach v'yishtabach v'yitpa'ar v'yitromam v'yitnaseh. V'yithadar v'yit'aleh v'yithalal shemei dekudesha brichu. Le'ela min kol birchata v'shirata tushbechata v'nechemata ta'amiran be'alma v'imru amen. Yehi shlama Rabbah min shemaya v'chaim aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael v'imru amen. Oseh shalom b'mromav hu ya'aseh shalom aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael v'imru amen. May the source of peace send peace to all who mourn and comfort to all who are bereaved, and let us say, Amen.
Oh, say shalom, shalom bimromav, say shalom aleinu, v'al kol Yisrael. Shabbat Shalom. We're going to ask you to remain standing for just a moment for a few quick announcements before we head into Kiddush, and then Motzi, and then the end of our service. So tomorrow morning, Shabbat continues at 9:30 with Torah study, which will be led by me, as well as the community service at 11 o'clock in our Finer Chapel, which will also be led by me. Rabbi Black is out of the country this weekend celebrating and officiating at a wedding of close friends. And Rabbi Hyatt and Steve Brodsky will be officiating at the bar mitzvah of Sam Rosen tomorrow morning, which will be right here in this sanctuary. Other things that are coming up on Sunday is Purim here in the religious school at 9 o'clock and at 12 o'clock. If you have already registered for Purim, because it is sold out, you can come and enjoy the carnival. And then at 10:15 and 1:15, we will be doing our Disney Frozen Purim spiel. And if you've ever wanted to know what it sounds like if Esther sang Love is a Total Chore, you can watch that on our stream. You can be here if you have registered. You can watch. We will be live streaming it on channel 2 of our website, I think, or channel 1. I don't know. We haven't decided yet. Channel 2 of our website. And we will also be streaming that again on Erev Purim, which is Wednesday, March 16th, where we will also, at 7 o'clock, have an adult Purim, which is for friends who are 21 and over. There are a lot of reasons why it is for friends who are 21 and over. You can register on the website to come and celebrate, to read a little bit of the Megillah, but also to engage in some community building. We are so excited to welcome people back into our building. It is the second anniversary of when we closed down, which was indeed right after a giant Purim celebration 2 years ago. So it's kind of remarkable that this is where we are right now, and we encourage you to come and learn with us a little bit and get together and enjoy each other in ways that we have not been able to.
Every time I put on my gold glitter go-go boots from that Elton John Purim, I remember that it was the last that we were together.
Every time you put them on. So. We're going to unpack that later. So with that, we are going to invite Sam to come and join us on the bima to say Kiddush. and maybe smile a little bit.
Yeah.
Yeah. Wait. We chant together. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam borei peri hagafen. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher kitshanu b'mitzvotav v'ratzavanu v'shabbat kodsho be'ahava uvratzon hinchilanu zikaron lema'aseh v'reishit Ki hu yom techila lemikrae kodesh zecher yetziat Mitzrayim Ki vanu v'acharta ve'otanu kidashta mikol ha'amim ve'shabbat kodshecha ve'ava uvratzon Hinchaltanu Baruch atah Adonai Mekadesh HaShabbat. Amen. It's grape juice. Take a big sip.
So sweet.
And then we say our motzi. You ready? Take it off. Go ahead. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam hamotzi lechem min haaretz. Amen. Why don't you go take this to your family who are probably very hungry by now? There you go.
I'll
Okay.
take this, you take those.
All right, we conclude our service this evening with words from our Megillat Esther, from the book of Esther. The Jewish community has enjoyed light in all different ways tonight, light and gladness and joy for so many years. May it continue to be so. La Yehudim Hayta La Yehudim Hayta Hayta Besimcha Besason Bikar. Let's try that all together. La Yehudim Hayta Besimcha Besason
lefanecha. May it be your will, God, that as we appreciate this pause, this Shabbat, that we do so with appreciation for our human nature, for our fallibility, and for the love and compassion and understanding of those around us who help us to learn, to be better and do better and build better worlds for those generations that are to come. And so we ask your blessing, God, tatzidenu l'shalom, help our steps, every step we take from this place. May it be a step of peace. Tadrichenu l'shalom, may our paths be paths of peace. As we say together, Amen.
Yehudim, Torah, Besimcha, Besason, Vikar. Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat Shalom.